Hi. So I'm really hoping this is working now. We have had so many technical problems this morning. So fingers crossed, we are actually streaming live for the third time this morning. If you were still with us, thank you so much. We're going to be talking about how to get better at speaking to grow your business. And by the end of the session, I'm going to show you why most people, how they approach this, is actually the thing that's keeping them stuck. I'm going to show you the one thing that you need to do first of all in order that you can really begin to improve and really start to generate a revenue in your business. And I promise you, it's probably not the thing that you think it is. So I've popped up in a feed over here, so I'm going to just close that so I can't hear myself twice. I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to show you the thing that's keeping people stuck. The one thing they need to do, first of all, that everything else makes sense and that is going to begin to make a difference in their business. And I promise you, it's probably not the thing that you think it is. Where are we? Life has changed exponentially in the last couple of years, and just an explosion of AI in the last 6 months. So most business owners are using AI in some way or another within their business. And a lot of people are using it to generate content. So content for social media, but also content for speaking. Now, some of that content is good, some of that is okay. It's not quite the same as if it's completely generated by a human being, but it's not bad. And so good speakers can actually take that fairly average content and make it quite powerful on stage. But there is something that even really experienced speakers get wrong about this. And it starts with the goal itself. So as you can see, my goal is already crossed out. That's from the previous two explanations of this section of the live. So the most common thing that I have happen when people come to me and they say, I want to get better at speaking. Speaking's been on my list of things that I need to improve, or the next stage of my business is to get better at speaking. It's actually the wrong goal because it is too vague. It's not specific enough. Speaking is simply a label. So that I want to get better at speaking is absolutely, I'm going to cross it out for the second time, is absolutely the wrong goal. What we need to be thinking here is speaking is simply that label. So think about it in terms of cooking. So if I want to cook a sourdough loaf or I want to cook haute cuisine, those are quite different examples. If I want to cook Southeastern Asian curries and patisserie, fancy French patisserie, really different skills. It's all cooking, but very, very different skills. So the things that I might need for bread making are going to be very different from the things that I might need from making a curry. So to say that I want to get better at speaking is not going to create the impact. It's not going to create the thing that you want. You're going to get vague results. Now, the reason that this matters right now, vague results, vague impact, vague speaking, is actually really, really detrimental to your business right now. Because I know that you will realize this because you've been through it, but we are having an existential business crisis at the moment, and it's a massive crisis of trust. Yeah, there's this huge crisis of trust. I mean, I know I feel it when I read social media, when I see things, when I'm sent things. I'm like, is this real? Is this true? Can I believe this person? So we are all very skeptical right now. We've got a low sense of trust. We've been burned too many times. So in business, there's this sense of very low level trust, which isn't very helpful for any of us. So what we need to do is start to build trust when we are communicating. Now, one of the ways we're going to do that is to stop, as I say, stop thinking about speaking as this big goal. It's too vague. We want to increase trust because everything in business, absolutely everything, moves at the speed of trust. Your relationships, your revenue, projects, people, everything moves at the speed of trust. So if we're having this big existential business crisis where trust is really, really low, one of the things we need to do as business owners and as speakers is actually begin to raise that level of trust. So if powerful, influential speaking is the way to increase trust, and it absolutely is, what do we need to do? What does that look like? So I'm going to talk you through what I think are the 4 main areas that is going to help you improve speaking and to up-level the trust when you are communicating with your audience. So there's 4 areas. Most people, most business owners are focused on one of those areas, and it's usually the wrong one first. So let's start right at what I think is the beginning. So for me, one of the biggest ways you can start to improve the trust you create when you speak is through your mind and your mindset work. So now this applies to literally everybody, whether you're not so experienced speaker, an extremely experienced speaker, unless you're a con artist or you're a spy. Now, if you're watching this, I'm going to assume that that is not the case. If it is, okay, interesting to have you in my audience. But most of us aren't spies, most of us aren't con artists. So what does that mean? It means that everything you think, literally everything you think, will leak out into your communication somehow or another. So if you are doubtful about something, it will show. It will show in how you use your body. It will show in how you breathe. It will show in your tone of voice. It will show in the words that you choose. So that doubt will leak out into the world, and your body will tell a story to your audience. And if there's a mismatch between the words that you're saying and the thing that goes on in your body, what happens? Trust goes down, because your audience is getting a mixed message. It doesn't know which one to pay attention to. So it pays attention to the bigger one, which is the body, which may be giving off signals that this is not completely 100% true. So we need to have like a steel trap of a mind, because otherwise when we talk about our product, when we talk about our experience, when we talk about pricing, that's a biggie, then our voices start to change and the way that we speak will start to change and our audience will pick up on that. So what we need to really understand here is that there is this amazing mind-body connection. Probably can't see my body there, it's a little bit too small. So what we do with our body feeds up into our brain, and what we think in our brain feeds down into our body. So I'll drop my pen there. We need to be thinking about developing a sense of expertness, or expert ease is what I like to call it. So that's being able to sort of stand there, expert ease, is able to stand on stage, to stand wherever you are where you're communicating and say, I'm really good at my job. And this is how much it would cost you to have me help you create this transformation. Because when we can do that with absolute confidence, brain confidence, body confidence, it makes a massive difference to our audience, because they're now getting one message. This, that in terms of the words you're saying, this in terms of the tone of voice that you're saying, and this in terms of the body is all doing the same thing. So it becomes much easier to accept. So I often say to people, this is a bit like, imagine watching a Nike advert, right? So you've got your athlete on the track, they've got their trainers on, they're doing up, they're getting ready to run their race. It's beautifully filmed, you've got this, super fit athlete. And then you've got some kind of like country and western style music, or classical music. Well, maybe classical music is not such a good example, but it doesn't fit, right? It's not energetic, it's not inspiring, it's not this sort of cinematic piano. It doesn't make sense. So you'd be like, that's weird. So when we communicate, we need to function like an advert, so that the image, the message, and the sound all works together in concert. But it starts with your mind. It starts with what you're thinking. It starts with knowing that you're bringing value to this conversation. So that's a really, really important part of your increasing trust every time you're speaking. So I'm going to hop over this side. So this side here, we've got body and breath. So these are the next 2 things that really we need to start working on to increase trust when we speak. So the way that we use our bodies is absolutely critical. If I was to do this live and I was to pace for the entire time, like some kind of caged tiger, one, you're going to find it very irritating and start, I'm going to stop. You're going to start to feel quite seasick. But second of all, it doesn't look like I'm taking up space. It doesn't look like I'm confident in my space. So how we use our body is really, really important. I was coaching someone yesterday who is actually going to be on television, and they're going to be doing something while they're being interviewed. So we were talking about having a very strong lower half of the body, so that when they're moving around, they're moving very confidently with the lower half of their body. And then the top half, so from waist to shoulders, that their movements are really nice and fluid. So yeah, they can be working at speed, but it's a fluid, it's not jerky, because that's going to put their audience off. And then we were talking about having an animated voice, because this is the bit that carries over to your audience. So how we're using our body and being super intentional about how we use the body is going to be really important. So a couple of things that I see often that will decrease trust when you are speaking is shoulders rolled forward and chest slightly caved in. Because the minute I do this, obviously I don't know anything different than I do before, I'm looking less confident. And my shoulders are just rolled forward. The other thing, you can't see this, is having your feet too close together or having them crossed over. So I'm immediately taking up less space now. So I'm not saying I'm confident to take up this space. I'm not saying this is me, please listen. So what we do with our body is really, really critical. So the body needs to be working, it needs to be taking up space, and it needs to work well. Now, the next thing that is really important is breath, where the breath is sitting in your body. So if it's sitting up here in your chest, it's going to create a flood of hormones in your system. It's also going to signal to your audience that you're not feeling very comfortable, and then they are not going to feel comfortable. They won't know why, but they won't feel comfortable. So we really need to understand what is going on with the breath, because even before you take your first word, your breath is giving a signal to your audience about what is important. About how much you are comfortable taking up that space. So really, really, really important that the breath is as low down in the body as possible, that we are breathing deeply. It's going to make you feel calmer as well, because the more deeply you breathe, the less anxious you're going to feel. And also when you're speaking, we want to be able to take breath in ways that's going to support what you're going to say. So what we do with our body, what we do with our breath is really, really important. So we want to be thinking about what are we doing with our face? We want to be thinking about what are we doing with our shoulders? We want to be thinking about what's going on with the belly. The belly needs to be nice and soft, otherwise we can't breathe properly. We want to be thinking about what we're doing with our feet. Are our feet really nicely grounded to our floor? Are our knees nice and relaxed? So you can see already there's a huge amount. Then you've got to think about gesturing. What are you doing with your hands and your arms? There's a huge amount of stuff that needs to go on in the body intentionally, so that you are coming across to your audience as a trustworthy person. Again, so it matches up with your content, it matches up with your tone of voice. Really, really critical. Okay, voice. So all the elements that make up your voice. We need to be able to intentionally control and use our voice. So we need to be able to control pausing. Now, even really, really experienced speakers still could do with improving the way that they pause. Pause is it's polite. It allows your audience to absorb and play around with the material that you've just given. Think about it. You've probably never been to a talk or a speech where you thought, this person is pausing too much. Rarely. I've met one person who had their pauses were all a bit too long. So we need to be able to think about pausing. So are they there? Are they varied in length? Are we using them appropriately after the information that we've given people? Because there's lots of different ways to use pause. Are you comfortable holding silence? Because if you're not comfortable holding silence, your audience is not going to be comfortable holding silence. So they're going to feel uncomfortable for you. So you really have to learn to hold silence. We need to think about pace, in varying the pace. If I delivered everything at the same nice, slow pace all the way through, you're going to get pretty bored pretty quickly, right? You might be bored already. But when we vary our pace, when we slow it down intentionally, because this bit is really important, when we speed it up because this bit's really exciting or it's throwaway, then our audience again begins to trust us. We look and sound comfortable on stage. We look and sound like a trustworthy, experienced person. So we need to be able to play around with voice. We need to be able to play around with tone of voice so that we can show the difference between something we really, really care about, an action that needs taking right now, So we can play around with the tone of voice, and then that tone of voice needs to match with our gestures. So going back to the body, the tone of voice and the body need to match. Otherwise, again, it's a mixed message, and all just goes, I don't know. And we become less trustworthy. We need to think about things like emphasis. How are you using your voice to use emphasis? How are you telling stories? How are you using analogies? Lots and lots of people don't use analogies. They don't use stories. So the way that we can tell a story with our voice is really, really powerful. So there's lots of different ways, and that's just scratching the surface of voice stuff, because then we have a whole load of stuff around phonation. So what is the sound that you're producing? Is it nice, clear tone is what we're looking for? Or are you a bit breathy? Or are you using vocal fry all the time? And so it sounds a little bit more like this. So, and vocal fry is something that creeps in at the ends of sentences. So you can have nice, clear tone until you get to the end of the sentence, and then it sort of drifts away into a vocal fry. And that reduces trust, because vocal fry creeps in when we're not sure or we don't care. So really important. So there's loads of bits around voice that can make a difference to your credibility and increase or decrease trust. Finally, content. So when I say content, I am meaning things like structure. So how you structure your content. I'm talking about story arcs. I'm talking about the words that you use. I'm talking about things like linguistic devices. I'm talking about whether it's logical. Does one thing flow into the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing? Does it create a bridge between where your audience is and where you want them to be? Because if it doesn't, you're not going to get them there unless you drag them kicking and screaming. So this content, this is where most people start. And really, most people think about that. What are the words I'm going to say? And they might think about the order that they're going to say it in. And they focus on those two things. And most people, even experienced speakers, that's what they do. They might think a little bit about how they're going to present. But I would say 99.9% of business owners do this bit. They don't do the other bit. So where we need to start, what's really, really critical is here. Because if that isn't working, it doesn't matter how brilliant your content is. It doesn't matter how beautifully structured, how lovely the stories are. If this is not on board, this is not on side, your mindset is not for you, pro you, supporting you, it doesn't matter. And if you start doing any kind of work that's working on your body or any kind of work that's working on your voice, it isn't going to stick if you haven't done the mindset work. It's like putting on a mask. It's like putting on a costume. It's not real. It's not authentic. And again, that decreases trust. So everything in terms of getting better, getting more influential, more persuasive, more trustworthy every time you speak, it's got to start with the mindset stuff. Because once we do that bit, then the body starts to do things authentically. Then the voice starts to do things authentically. And we can learn different skills in an authentic manner that is going to impact how trustful we sound when we speak. And then we can start to think about what you're going to say. Right? That's the last bit. But usually people go, I've got a presentation to do, or I want to go and pitch this idea. And so they get out their laptop and they start writing. And it's really the wrong place to start. We have to start here. Then we can improve on these other areas. Now, I've given you a lot to think about, right? But I did want to really make that point that speaking is just a label. There's so many tiny little elements and levers that we can pull and push to increase our impact, to increase the level of trust that we are creating with our audience. When we're speaking at conferences, when we're doing webinars, when we're doing lives, when we are speaking at networking events, all of those scenarios are fantastic ways to increase trust and therefore grow your business through speaking. Now, you might be feeling a teeny tiny bit overwhelmed because that's a lot of stuff. And like I say, I'm just scratching the surface. Now, this is why whenever we start to work with any of our clients, we always do a benchmarking process at the beginning. We take a look at a video and we analyze it against 15 different data points to see what people are doing really, really well and what needs improving. Now, often people are not aware of the things that they're doing really well, but those are the things we want to be leveraging. It's like, you're already doing that, great, do more of it. Not too much, but definitely use it in more spaces. And then we look very, very specifically at what is the 1, 2, and 3 things we need to improve. We'll focus on 1 first, then we'll move on to 2, then we'll move on to 3, because otherwise it's overwhelming, right? You couldn't possibly stand up and speak and think about all of those things at once. You literally wouldn't be able to remember the words you were going to say. So it's really important to have a process where you're looking at one thing, then the next thing, and then the next thing. Now, some of you might want to come and do that with me, and that's amazing. That would be fantastic. Many of you won't. What we have created in the last few weeks, I'm really excited about this, so I don't do tech, is we've created a diagnostic tool. It's a really, really simple tool. It will take you literally 2 minutes and 37 seconds, probably less, but it will give you an idea of where the next place in your speaking you can start to address to improve. And if you email me your score and your lowest area, there's 5 areas, your lowest area, I will give you some personalized tips on how to improve your speaking in the coming weeks and months. So I hope that you have found that useful, and I hope that you can see that speaking is the way to drive revenue, relationships, strategic partnerships in your business, as long as you're doing it in a way that is going to create, not diminish, trust, because that is absolutely critical in the next year or two. That's going to differentiate between businesses that are going to survive and do really well and the ones that aren't. So I hope this is useful. I'll be back next Friday. Take care, have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you on LinkedIn. Bye for now.